Hello, denizens of the internet. This is a better late than never review of Blackberry, the movie, the story of the rise and fall of a Canadian business icon. What, you say? It came out in May of 2023? It went to streaming in June? Aren't you a super duper nerd? Yes. Aren't you Canadian? Yes. Why are you only getting to this now? Okay, let me answer this first, and then I'll get to my thoughts on the movie itself. Canadians don't watch Canadian movies in theaters, or anywhere for that matter. Historically, they have been mostly embarrassing. In fact, we'd prefer to get caught sugaring off in a shed to pictures of Canadian former Playboy playmate Shannon Tweed. That's both men and women, just in case you want to call me sexist. There have been some bright spots, like the apprenticeship of Duddy Kravitz, Mon Oncle Antoine, and Cronenberg's Dead Ringers, but we don't really have any breakthrough hits to compete with other struggling movie jurisdictions such as Australia, New Zealand, and South Africa, who have managed several major recognizable successes such as Mad Max, Crocodile Dundee, Moulin Rouge, Whale Rider, The Piano, The Gods Must Be Crazy, District 9. Yes, we have Canadians who have made it huge in Hollywood, such as Ivan Reitman, and of course, Canadians such as Jack Warner, Max Sennett, Louis B. Mayer, who was born in Russia but grew up in New Brunswick, so we're taking him, practically invented Hollywood cinema. The cavalcade of Canadian megastars is huge, but I won't belabor that here. It's not for lack of trying. In 2023, approximately 160 films were released here. Most were French-Canadian, and a large portion were documentaries, something Canadians excel at because of the National Film Board. I would guess the vast majority received federal and provincial government funding, and practically no one will see them. They will be excruciating, mostly dull, earnest efforts featuring stories about how horrible a country Canada is, providing honest attempts at diversity in front of and behind the camera. Bravo! Serious diversity that Hollywood only pays lip service to. There are even established Canadian stars like Elliot Page returning to Canada, producing a couple of them. Thanks, Elliot, for showing the maple leaf. Yet, for all practical commercial purposes, no one will see the English productions except at small festivals and vegan dinner parties. These films are also hobbled by receiving little to no marketing. Our government agencies would never fund a Mad Max because it's big, bombastic, and entertaining. Canadians aren't desperately waiting for that breakout global movie hit or the Stanley Cup finally coming back to Canada, whichever comes first. But if you think having Hollywood halfwits reading your script is an exercise in futility, then compare that with a Canadian bureaucrat diversity hire judging your efforts. And so we have Jay Baruchel, who lent his acting skills, credentials, and notoriety to Blackberry. It was made for $5 million and grossed $2.7 worldwide. It should have done much better. But even I didn't go see it in the theater. I love Jay. That should have been enough for me to have supported my countryman, and for that I feel terrible. Clearly, he forewent his Hollywood salary to do this movie. Canada thanks you. Seth Rogen, you can stay in the U.S. One of the reasons I wasn't interested in seeing it was that it was marketed as a comedy. I was not interested in the IT crowd version of Blackberry. I was in IT. I know what programmers are like. Lastly, the trailer did a terrible job at interesting me in the movie. It made the assumption that Blackberry was still a relevant story. It's shocking to think how big Blackberry was and how quickly it imploded and disappeared from our collective memories. Perhaps a trailer featuring world leaders sports personalities, actors reminiscing about their crackberries and wondering whatever happened to the plucky Canadian company would have been more of an intriguing approach. And so it took my good friend, Mexican Iron Man, of all people, as we were sitting in his South Carolina living room overlooking the golf course in front of his massive flat screen TV, trying to decide what film we would watch before I headed back to Canada. He recommended Blackberry. An American told me to watch Blackberry. Oh, the irony. It was fantastic. I loved it. Many critics described it as a comedy, and they were wrong. It's not a comedy, though I could understand how Matt Johnson's character, Doug, channeling John McEnroe's hair, headband, and temper could have tipped the scale in that direction. I have no idea if this was an accurate portrayal of life at Research in Motion. It's based on the book Losing the Signal by Jackie McNish and Sean Silkoff. But I've encountered every character in the movie in my life. Blackberry captured the atmosphere of programmers of that era much better than the TV show Silicon Valley. Now, I never met Mike Lazaridis or Jim Balsillie, the co-CEOs of RIM, but whomever Jay was channeling for Lazaridis, it was a compelling and totally committed performance. The unrecognizable Glenn Howerton from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia as Jim Balsillie was absolutely brilliant. In many ways, I actually like Blackberry more than the wonderful Tetris movie. While Tetris overamped the Iron Curtain intrigue, Blackberry should be shown in all MBA courses on how a good idea does not sell itself, the risks people take, the bad decisions, the luck, the sharks, the obstacles, and the solutions to overcoming them. It also delved into the hubris of success and the failure to change course, to deal with change. As Steve Jobs said, if you're not willing to put yourself out of business, then someone else will. And in this case, ironically, Apple put BlackBerry out of business. As a Canadian, this was a painful story to watch. We have so few global business successes that are still here. Alcan, Canadian National Railway, Canadian Pacific Railway, Hudson Bay Company, Magna International, well, actually, Hudson Bay, North America's first department store, is owned by an American firm, NRDC Equity Partners. Sad. Our biggest companies tend to be banks and mining companies, companies that take minerals out of the ground and money out of our pockets. We do have some outliers, such as Shopify and Lululemon. Our biggest tech darling, Northern Telecom, or Nortel as it was known, just let Huawei steal all its intellectual property, literally kickstarting the Chinese telecommunications industry. Now, it's gone. BlackBerry still exists as a cybersecurity company and licenses the QNX operating system to the automotive industry. But it's no longer the iconic BlackBerry phone company. The screenplay was written by Matt Johnson and Matthew Miller and directed by Matt Johnson in a wonderfully economic style. You can tell this was a low-budget production, but man, it hides it really, really well, especially with the casting of some amazing Canadian character actors, Saul Rubinek and Michael Ironside, who put in razor-sharp, scene-chewing performances. Oh my gosh, it was great. The script is tight and filled with lots of oddball characters. It doesn't have the same character development arcs as a traditional story. No final redemption. That's because the main character is the BlackBerry, starting out as a mass of tangled wires and broken Nintendo Game Boy parts through to many sleek, massively successful iterations and the final ignominious warehouse full of the ill-conceived and failed BlackBerry storm. You can tell this is a Canadian film because it ends in failure. Canadian movies are an emotional mixed bag for those of us who care about such things. I'm sure you Americans watching this video are thinking, what the hell is Paul on about? Frankly, I don't know. But as far as I'm concerned, it's one of the best films of 2023, and I encourage you to watch it, especially if you liked Tetris. Till next time, denizens, be seeing you, eh?